If you're a big budget producer or a small indie filmmaker, there's still a huge obstacle to making a movie. What will it be about? Really, it could be anything. Space adventures, gunslingers, even toys. But you don't know what you want it to be about, and that's a problem. Just because it can be about anything, it doesn't mean it should. Let me present my thesis. Don't have an idea for the story. It doesn't matter if it's about space cowboys, normal cowboys, even toy cowboys if the movie is bad. Instead, think in terms of structure. I'm talking about plot structure, but also more generally about filmmaking and assembly. How do you want the audience to feel? Excited, tense, awe-inspired? And how are you, the filmmaker, gonna do that? Quick cuts or long takes? With music or without? This is the stuff that isn't difficult to come up with. Just think of a tone, a color, a sound, and suddenly you might have a story. Think of your movie in acts, even if it's short. Even if it's an experimental movie. Keep your end in mind. All acts serve the purpose of the end. Even if the ending has nothing change or it finishes inconclusively, the acts serve to deliver an ending that feels like it matters. Acts constrain what the story will eventually be about, but we haven't gone there yet. The purpose of structuring a movie before discovering its story is that this extra pressure leads to the discovery of a new idea, or at least a new take on an old story. It enforces the rule that you aren't making a movie that's already been done before. It can have the same narrative of another movie, but if the structure is different enough, writing plagiarism is tolerable. When adapting a book or story, the difference is entirely based on structure. Since movies don't work in book structure, the structure change becomes a necessity rather than an addition. Requiem for a Dream does this wonderfully with visual storytelling adapted for a screen rather than the detail style writing is known for. Interior. Moving cab. Harry sits in the back seat, filled with worry and concern. Tears well up into his eyes until he can't hold it any longer. He sobs hard. Real hard. A moment later, he collects himself and gets high. Flick, sizzle, snap, suck, slap, rush, sigh. Harry wipes away his tears. Requiem for a Dream is also a good instance of a writing structure exercise. It operates within the seasons of the year. This exercise brings up what the seasons represents, what story is accessible within 4 seasons, and how these two ideas, metaphor and accessibility, work together. This brings it back to constraints. Putting constraints on the structure help bring out what the actual plot will be about. Using our previous example, the seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring, sections the movie into the 4 seasons in a monk's lifetime. The constraints of the structure forces the story to be unique and involved. The metaphor and the structure of seasons is cycles, repetition, and in Requiem for a Dream, it is time. The ideas of metaphor is that the structure informs the metaphor, and the metaphor informs what the story will be about. So say my structure was non-chronological. The metaphor is the assembly of time, which is also an allegory for filmmaking. This can get me magicians with birds or time-traveling hermaphrodites. 2 different metaphors for one structure. Even though they're very different, the root idea is still there. If I were to make a non-chronological movie, it has a lot of directions to go, but limited enough to find those directions. And that's the big idea I'm getting at. Limit yourself. Putting limitations on what your idea can be about will give you that spark, an idea that will propel to pre-production, to the shoot, to the post-production, and finally to the release of your movie. Look through the viewfinder. You are constrained by the dimensions of the camera, 1.6 by 1 centimeters to fit your eye's pupil. In those few centimeters you find the shot, frame the composition, and finally you take the photo.